Right now, it's time. Grab your keys and phone, let's go. Right now, it's time. Grab your shit, come on, let's go. Right now, it's time. Grab your keys and phone, let's go.
Right on. Well, I'm going to start off by just kind of briefly introducing Adam Schell and my kind of background. I first met you in high school, and here's my earliest memory of Adam Schell is high school battle of the bands. My band getting its butt whooped by Adam's band.
It's all Dean and Sean.
And man, I learned some really good lessons that day. And you guys, the thing I remember about it is you guys brought the energy. You had the whole crowd into your show, and you weren't afraid to do some heavy stuff, man. You guys played some Metallica, and I'm talking early 1990s.
Fade to Black, baby. I think we did Fade to Black and Sanitarium.
I think it may have been 1990 or 91, something like that. It was really early 90s. It was before the whole grunge thing kind of came on.
100%.
And but it was shortly after that we partnered up and started making music together. And it was very clear to me early on we had a lot of similar interests, which we both loved shred guitar. I was just infatuated with that style of music. And you introduced me to players like Alex Skolnick and Jason Becker, and I was listening to a lot of Steve Vai at the time, and well, honestly, I still do. But those are just kind of some of my earlier memories. And then over time, you and I formed different bands. I remember at one point kind of dropping out of college and being at a party with you. I think it was up in Fort Collins, Colorado, where you were like, "Hey man, like we got to get a band. I know this bass player." And we just never stopped. Like from that point, we got another band going, and that was the band where we started touring and making CDs, and we just had a lot of fun. We made some great music. But the thing that I think about a lot from those times is the songs that we made. I feel like they were unique, energetic, and like every song that we put together, it just was different. Like it had its own identity or sort of trademark, I guess. So like I know if you came to see one of our shows, you're going to see something just a little bit different. And so one of the things that I hope you kind of share today is about songwriting, about your approach, your philosophy, and how how you put them all together. But we'll get to that. But first, I kind of want to learn a little bit from you about like how did you get started in music, and who were your early influences?
Yeah. So I'm going to go way back. And my mom, when I was really young, had me take guitar lessons. Like, you're going to take guitar lessons. I immediately hated it and stopped almost right away. Like maybe gave it 10 minutes. And then I don't want to do this. But I'm sure I did like a month worth of lessons, didn't enjoy it. She stopped taking me because I didn't practice all that stuff. Right. So, well, then fast forward to middle school, and I met this kid. I actually played soccer with him. And then I lived basically right next door to this guy named Dean Peterson. And, he had this cool.
I know that guy, by the way.
I know. Yeah. So yeah, the family connection is there. Right. You guys are stepbrothers. So yeah, anyway, started hanging out with him, and he was taking lessons from this guy. I swear to God, his name was Paul Gibson. And I know it sounds crazy, but I think that was actually his name.
Yeah, I think it was Paul Anderson, right?
Was that?
Paul Anderson.
Maybe he had a Gibson, so I thought his name was Gibson. I'm
definitely going to double check and give him a shout out, though.
I love that. But yeah, so Dean had been taking lessons for a little while. And so I was like, oh man, Heaven's on Fire. You got to show me how to play that. So he kind of showed me how to play that. And I found that it came easy for me, probably because I had taken lessons when I was a kid. Regardless of whether I hated it, some of the muscle memory was still there. And then I was like, he learned something else, showed me that Wasted Years by Iron Maiden, showed me that, right? Like everyone knows that song. So picked that up pretty quick. And pretty soon I was like, well, what else? And he's like, you know what I know, like you're caught up. Right. So I'm like, okay, great. So I had him introduce me to his guy. Then I needed a guitar, and this is going to go to one of your next question, but like first guitar, I picked up this like 3/4 size Memphis guitar at the time. So it's not even a full size guitar, but it was electric. Bought it at Crescendo Music in Littleton, RIP. Too bad that place isn't still around. Such a cool little shop. But so yeah, took lessons there for quite a while. And then it was time to get a nicer guitar. So I convinced my dad to buy me a BC Rich, of all things. It was a cool electric blue BC Rich, not the Warlock, just standard Strat style guitar. But I remember thinking that thing was so expensive. It's probably $1,200, but now there's probably a $2,500 guitar. It was a nice guitar. Played that thing for forever. Started writing some songs on that. And then what was it? Oh, it was jazz band. Yeah, jazz band in high school. Started playing in the high school jazz band. Wasn't great at reading music. Wasn't particularly shredding at that time. And actually, Mr. Asham, who was the conductor, was like, "You have a lot of potential. You just got to kind of put it together." And so he's like, "I want to give you a solo for this song to learn over the summer and come back." And I did. I learned that solo like note for note, actually. And during that, I practiced a lot, and I had a pretty huge leap going into my sophomore year of high school, just because I played a ton, played a lot there. And then all of a sudden I was soloing on every song, every single song we did in jazz band. I was soloing on it because he's like, "Yeah, this is what I want. More of that, more. So that was cool to be kind of highlighted there. And then I found this guitar actually at Fred's Music in Littleton. It was on consignment, and I didn't know at the time, but it was a kid at my high school. His dad had bought him this guitar saying, "I'll buy it, but you got to get like straight C's or something." And he started failing a class. He put it up for consignment at Fred's Music for $500. And I'm like, I walked in, I was like, "I have to have this. This is way cheaper than it should be." Bought it out from under this kid. And that's probably about the time I started playing with Frijoles de los Cryptos.
Right.
One of our first bands with Jason Kay and Todd Mollick. And yeah, some of the rest is history. But yeah, we've been on a crazy ride. And you talk about some of those early days, and we definitely wanted to be different, right? Like songwriting.
Oh yeah.
And I think about like, we wanted our songs to be weird, right? Kind of weird and different. And oddly enough, we never became famous doing that.
But tell me a little bit about some of the early influences, because like, where does that come from? I know, speaking for myself, like at that time I was listening to bands like Primus, and Mr. Bungle, and just like really off the wall kind of music. But what were some of the influences at that time where you were kind of inspired to get a little bit weird with your music?
Yeah. So I would say that the first album I ever bought and was like, was Master Puppets by Metallica. I remember listening to it. I went and I wanted to be alone, put on my Walkman, put the tape in my Walkman, put the headphones on, and we went into the room of the house where nobody ever goes. And I just sat there and I listened to it, kind of thinking through it, flipped it over to the B-side, listened to the B-side. And I listened to it so long that it actually got dark in that room. And I remember kind of looking around, pulled the tape over, and just started it again. Just listened to the whole thing twice without stopping. And that for me was like, I didn't really know that music could be that melodic, but also heavy. And I love that. That took me into like some Alex Skolnick Testament type stuff, which he brought in a lot of like a bluesy feel and sometimes classical feel into basically thrash metal, which I loved. And then probably shortly after that, I started like reading Guitar Magazine, and it was Jason Becker and Marty Friedman with Cacophony and Blue Saraceno and Satriani, Steve Vai, Yngwie Malmsteen, the Holy Trinity, if you will, right? So
the guitar gods.
Yeah, 100%. And so, God, I can't, George Lynch, can't forget George Lynch from Dokken. I mean, I still play Mr. Scary to this day. I love the song. So yeah, I think those were some of my early influences. And then oddly enough, like we were roommates, shortly after high school, and you introduced me to like Frank Zappa and some of the weirdest shit ever, right? And probably got more into Primus at that time. Tool was becoming a thing. Definitely like Mr. Bungle. So yeah, I think we had this idea of like I wanted it to be heavy. I wanted it to be artistically valid, if that makes sense, right? Which I think at the time we thought it needs to be kind of weird, which for many I think just meant off-putting, right? So yeah, I would say those were some of the early influences. And I would say a lot of those remain. Some of them have changed for sure. There's just so many new guitarists. The guitarist from Veil Maya, for instance, is amazing. His name is escaping right now. But then you've got Joe from Within the Ruins, who basically is like a crazy video game soundtrack every time he plays, and then he puts really heavy riffs behind it. I just saw Buckethead last night.
Oh, right on.
Pretty sick guitarist. Buckethead is he does his thing. And it's funny, he plays a lot of just rhythm stuff. I was watching last night. I was like, he's actually not soloing the whole time. I think he does that because he's like, I'm going to get people into it, and then I'm going to shred 18 bars. I just want to see him shred the entire time. So that's my message to Buckethead, just shred more. But and then Aaron Marshall, do you know Intervals, the band?
Yeah.
That guy's sick. And you talk about integrity. This guy won't let his music like go on Songster. So you can't, because he sells the tab, because like it's that good, it's worthy. If you want it, you want to learn how to play these, either figure it out or come buy it. And I kind of love that. So that guy's a true artist.
I'm going to put a couple of links to some of these influences in the description too. So I'm sure there's going to be a few people that haven't heard of them, and then they'll get exposed to them for the first time. You're talking about Frank Zappa. Honestly, I thought, all right, there's a Steve Vai influence here. I know Adam's going to like this. And anyway, I was thinking back, and you were saying that your mom got you into guitar lessons when you were in elementary school and you hated it. And honestly, that really surprises me a lot, because I know like guitar has been your world for the longest time. Like I can say you're infatuated with it. Kind of the way that I am with drums. And so it really surprised me to hear that you hated it. Why did you hate it at that time?
More than likely because like they were trying to have me play like butterscotch blues and like these terrible sea shanty songs. And I had no point of reference. Like think about like you're just learning an instrument and you're trying to play a song you've never heard. So I guess if they were like, start with Happy Birthday, at least know how that goes. Maybe that would have been easier, right? And that was something that was so great about future instructors is like, they basically like, tell me some songs you like, and then we can kind of work through them. And that's how you learn the instrument and you'll learn how to play songs. And that for me made a lot more sense. But I'm kind of like have an engineering mind anyway. So I want to reverse engineer every single thing I ever hear, see, or do anyway. So I know what it's supposed to be. And then I can work my way to that. Not like I have no idea what the finished product is and we're just going to try. That was tough for me. So I think that's probably why.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking back on like in my own experience, my parents would not let me play the drums. I wanted to, they would not let me. And I get it. I mean, that stuff's loud and really obnoxious, especially when you really suck, as every first time drummer does. But like in my experience, that made me want it more. So it's just a little bit of a different kind of thing that happened for you. But nonetheless,
convince your parents to let you play drums.
Well, they were going through a tough time, and I may have played on the sympathies a little bit of my mother, but they relented. And also I found a way to keep playing, even if it wasn't my own drums. I found neighbors that had drums, and the school had drums, and I mean, it was just happening no matter what, basically. I don't care if it was pots and pans or whatever. And even in our early years playing in bands, I played on a like $75 drum kit for the first year. Doesn't matter. It's like you get drawn to it and you have to do it, and you do it.
I remember the first time going down in your basement and I saw the double bass. I want to say it was a Pearl.
Right.
I
Yeah.
remember what it was, but, and I was like, and he had like 50 pieces, the rototoms going. And I was like, here's a drummer. This guy's going to be able to play. And I knew you could play already because I saw you at the Battle of the Bands, and you did the solo in the dark, which I thought was just ballsy. Yeah, literally, like, imagine being at a Battle of Bands in high school and you tell the place, hey, just turn off all the lights. Do a drum solo. That's basically what you did. And it was awesome. So yeah, I same thing. I've had this idea of like Kevin, so for those who don't know, first off, Kevin's an amazing drummer, but probably what makes you so good is your ability to like meld and like go, I know what this person's looking for, but I'm gonna play that, but I'm gonna make it more interesting. So you add a lot to everything that you do. And I've always appreciated that as a drummer.
Man, seriously, I appreciate the compliment. But the reason the lights were out is because I don't like being in the spotlight, man. I really hate it. And that's why I'm going to bring this right back to you right now.
Funny. Fair enough.
I do want to know, and before we get to like where things are right now, you told me a little bit about your first guitar and then your first BC Rich. And, but I want to know about the first song that you remember writing. Do you still remember it?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. And yes, I do. Like, it's this little, you probably can't hear it, but yeah, it was this little, almost more of a guitar loop, right? So I could jam on it. Honestly, it was more than anything, right? So yeah, I wrote this song and it was, maybe 3 parts, maybe very repetitive, but it allowed me to like do some solos over it. And I remember this parlayed very quickly into my first like recording piece. So at some point I picked up a 4-track and I started playing that song and recorded it. And then I started looping other guitars on top of it. And then I was like, oh, maybe I'd do another one. And I'd have an idea like, oh, I want to do something a little bit more like heavy. So I'd start writing pieces and putting them together. And for some reason, songwriting for me has just kind of always been the obvious outcome of playing guitar. I don't know why. But it was for me, and this goes back into like probably why I became so good. And I'm going to toot my own horn a little bit. Like, I feel like I'm pretty good at this thing.
I think you get to toot your own horn, man. You're very accomplished.
Like, it was an outlet, right? Like, I went through some tough times, late middle school, early high school. And for me, it was like a way to get it out, right? Like, I could have been out there like creating mischief or whatever else, but I was basically sitting in my basement, learning how to play guitar and then writing songs. And so I think it was my sophomore year, I'd compiled this little tape. And the entrepreneur in me like made like 50 copies of this tape, and I started selling them for $2 a piece in my high school, including to my jazz instructor, who was like, "You're not just going to give me one?" I was like, $2, man. It's like he paid just like everybody else.
I love that, man.
Yeah, and so I probably knew at that time like this was going to be something I did forever, and it's continued to do that, right? As I go through. Everybody goes through stressful times, instead of, doing bad stuff, whatever it is, I come down here and I start fiddling on the guitar. And before I know, I've been down here for 3 hours creating music. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's crap. I've always got this thought of like, don't do anything until the next day, come back and listen to it. And then you'll know if you still like it, then you're on to something. If you come back and like, oh, it wasn't very good. Sometimes it's just an in the moment thing. And probably half the songs I write don't know it.
Right. Yeah. Well, do you still have a recording of that first little cassette that you made?
I do. Yeah. Yeah. Recently, probably before I got rid of the last tape deck I ever owned, I changed it to digital. So I have them digitally now as well. And it is funny listening to them because the quality is terrible. But some of the guitar work is nice. And I've actually thought about like going back and should I redo a couple of these songs? There were a couple that were probably worth a remix, and actually doing with good production. So yeah, I do still have that. How about you? Was your first recording stuff with us, Concentrate Evil?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. My first recording studio experience was way back then. My first songwriting was after I just started learning how to play a guitar, but I never really got very good. I never really had like too much instruction. I actually learned classical guitar for a year, which doesn't really lend itself to like writing rock songs or whatever, because you're holding the guitar up here and, playing with your long ass fingernails. It's weird. But I did kind of sort of learn how to write songs. I put out a couple on guitar, and my family liked it, so I thought it was pretty sweet in that case. Looking back, I'm like, ooh, like that was pretty archaic stuff, but but you got to start somewhere, right? But I think what you said is very true. Like the guitar kind of lends itself naturally to songwriting, and so that's the first time I ever wrote anything.
Yeah, that makes sense. Was that on that yellow Francomballi Ibanez?
I really don't know. It was on an acoustic guitar when I wrote. Like I've never written a song on an electric guitar, actually. Maybe a couple when I was really old, but back in those early days, it was all acoustic for some reason. I don't know why.
It makes sense. It's more melodic anyway. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know about that. I mean, electric guitar, one of the reasons that I've always been infatuated with it is because of the variety of textures that you can get. And like, you can have even back then, before all the digital production, you could still, just with an amp and a couple of pedals, get 400 or 500 different sounds from one instrument. So I definitely want to hear that first song that you wrote. Like if you ever get a chance, I'm not saying you have to share it with everybody who listens to this, but you kind of do now at this point. Yeah, so I think you better put that up on Bandcamp or something.
Well, I don't know if I'd ever do that, but I will send it to you, and you can share a snippet of it with the listeners. That's fine with me.
Right on, man. So I want to talk more about songwriting because, so what I learned is that early on, at least, your songs were like you would create a loop, for example, and basically build something that you could solo on top of. And that's pretty smart. And you got a little 4-track recorder to kind of take care of business back then. I actually remember that 4-track recorder. I stole it and borrowed it for a day or two.
Yeah. Oh, we definitely used it a lot. I mean, it was helpful for us, right? Because you think something sounds good, and then you record and like, this needs something, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, that thing was a game changer. Like, how do you approach writing a song nowadays?
Yeah, that's fair. And I was thinking about this earlier. Very rarely do I come downstairs in the basement here with the intention of writing a song. Typically, I'll come down here to just practice or play freely, whatever it is. I've got a set of like 20 songs that, I am potentially ready to play live at any time. And I just play them over and over, right? It's good for me, keeps me sharp, keeps me playing, which is good. And a lot of times, like during that, I'll, be thinking about a riff and I'll kind of expand on it a little bit, right? And what typically happens is I'll do that today, and then tomorrow I'll be in my office working, and I have actually this guitar hangs on the wall up there, and I'll have like a 10-minute break, and for some reason they'll have like something an itch in the brain, and I'll go grab that guitar and I'll play it again, right? And I'll play something that I really like, and so I'll usually pull out my phone and I'll just record me playing it so I remember it, right? And then I'll be kind of nuggeting on that thing of like, oh, you know what would be cool if it went into this other thing. So I'll kind of write another piece or record that piece. And so I'll kind of, at the end of the day, I'll have this kind of Frankenstein idea. And then I'll go, you know what? All right, now it's time to go try and make this into a song. So then I'll come down here and I'll start like, creating the drum track for each part, and then start arranging it a little bit. And then often that'll go in a totally different direction, oddly enough, right? It's kind of weird how it plays out. But I will say that almost always, whatever I'm writing today is going to be heavily influenced on what I'm listening to at a given time, right? An example is right after the intervals concert a while ago. Actually, it wasn't that long ago. Maybe 2 months ago, he came through here. I had all these really cool ideas going through my head, and so I probably had 30 different little videos of me playing different things. And I came down here and I turned those 30 different things into 2 songs, got rid of a lot of parts, added some things, and probably they're 2 of the best instrumental guitar songs I've ever written. I think I sent them to you. You've heard them, at least some of the early pieces of it. I still got some work to do, but so yeah. And I also have this Jekyll and Hyde thing going on, right? Because I love melodic instrumental guitar music, but I also love really fucking heavy metal, right? Like Within the Ruins, Veil of Maya, Spirit Box lately, just some really, really heavy stuff. After the Burial, gosh, what's the one out of Australia that I'm just love? Polaris right now is freaking fantastic. But so there's also like this other side where I'll turn the amp on as dirty as it'll go, and I'll just start playing heavy riffs. And then sometimes a song will come out of that. And I think I sent you one of those lately too. Actually, it comes off sounding a lot like Korn, oddly enough. And so I've often thought, like, do I need to have 2 projects? Does one need to be 25 down and another one needs to be Adam Schell playing guitar? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's a thought I keep percolating a little bit, right? To kind of get those 2 Jekyll and Hyde things into different worlds. I think that would actually be good. But I would say that's more of how it goes down now. It's a very free form experience. It's not like back in the days where, me, you, and Dan would be down in the 4-foot basement of the House of Evil, hammering songs, trying to make it work, right? And like, I'd have an idea, and then Dan would be like, well, what if you just did something totally different?
I have to say,
another song, like, let's have, right?
People may be a little confused by some of the things you're saying. So just for reference, Dan was the bass player. So it was Adam, me, Dan, drums, bass, and guitar. That was a band that we had for many, many years, and did a lot of recording and tours and things like that. And you said House of Evil. Now, I know what you're talking about, but I think you better explain what that means.
Yeah, so there's 2 of them. So the first House of Evil was a house that your mom bought, and for some reason, she allowed us to live there. Probably she thought we'd be responsible, but like, you were going to have a band live in your house. And I still feel so bad to this day. Like, we did not leave that house in good condition. I mean, holes in the walls, holes in the doors, trash everywhere. The carpet was probably ruined. And I've apologized to her, by the way, to her face about this. And by
the way, I'm sure she'll watch this video, so she'll hear it again.
So I am so sorry for the way we left that house. But that was the first House of Evil. Had the cops calling us all the time because we were in the middle of a suburb neighborhood and we were trying to have concerts there all the time. That didn't work. So then we moved downtown 6th and Penn in Denver into like a duplex. And for some reason, that worked fine. We were right next to 5 Iron Frenzy, another Denver band, which probably helped. But the basement, the ceiling was maybe 6 foot, maybe. Really short ceilings, unfinished, dingy, gross. But that's where we had to practice. And we'd go down there and sweat. There's no AC, so we would just sweat down there.
I've never been in better shape in my life than those days.
Bet. It's like playing music in a sauna.
Right. Well, why was it called the House of Evil?
Yeah, well, the band's name, I like all things we had back then. Great ideas. We loved the movie Time Bandits, right? Which you should. It's an amazing movie, right?
You should.
But the evil character is named Evil, and at the end he gets burned up. Spoiler, he dies at the end, and he gets blown into these big chunks of like coal, these black chunks of coal that glow red. And at the end, it's like, don't touch that. It's pure concentrated evil. And for some reason it stuck. So we thought the coolest name for our band would be Concentrate Evil. So that's what we went with. Also potentially hurt our chances of becoming famous. Although, you know, the funniest thing about that is we weren't that heavy. We were odd. We were hard rock, but there were jazzy parts to our songs. And so I know there's people that came to our concerts going, man, this is going to be so heavy. And we're super disappointed because it just wasn't that heavy. And probably super confused by the whole thing. But that's why it was the House of Evil. It was the other place where this band kind of got its legs. But we did some cool stuff. We played the KTCL Big Adventure with the Foo Fighters, and I still brag about this to this day. I mean, as we should. It was amazing.
Absolutely. 25 Down is your current project, and I've obviously been quite involved with that too.
100%.
The first release, I played drums on it, and then I've been blessed to produce all of your releases so far. One thing I've noticed about the music now, and maybe this has always been the case, but it's as though you also understand what an audience might be experiencing when you're writing your music, because the energy comes through and you know just the right spots to really bring it. I mean, there's a few songs where I just get pumped up like immediately when I hear it.
Yeah.
And even if it's an incomplete song, like you're just writing it and I'm hearing snippets of it and I'm like, oh, hell yes. Like, this is so killer. And I feel the energy. Where does that come from? Like, how do you do that? Give me your secrets.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you an example. That song, Let's Go, from the latest album. It's definitely one of those, like, go to it. And that song actually came out of, like, I work from home, right? We're just kind of coming out of COVID. So I've spent so much time in my house. And now I get these like moments where I'm like literally just, I have to get out of the house. Right. And it's funny because my wife will come home sometimes and I'll be just standing by the door. I'm like, change your shirt or whatever you need to do. We're going, right. Like, I can't be in this house anymore. And so for me, it was almost that like cabin fever energy that went into that song. And the release from that is like, I go jump in the Mustang, which is what I drive these days, a GT Mustang. And the freedom you feel when you just, it's, by the way, it's the total basic Mustang you can get. I mean, it is a V8 5.0 liter engine. It's sick, but there's no frills, cloth seats. But that, when you start it up, the roar you get from that. And so I knew when I was writing this song, and that was included, that idea of getting out of the house, getting in the Mustang and just going, there had to be this energy. And like, how do you do that? And so one thing, I knew there had to be dynamics, right? So I knew there had to be parts where like there's maybe just one instrument playing or no instruments playing, right? So the whole song starts off with that clap stack, right? And it's, come on, let's go, right? That kind of thing. And then when everything hits, you can't help but like, oh, here we go, right? Double bass is going right away. And then it comes back down and there's like this nice little cadence rhythm and then pops again, right? So for me, and actually somebody who kind of mentioned this needed to happen for me was Todd Malik from Frijoles, right? He's like, dude, you need that drop. You need more drops in your songs. And so definitely took that into play. So you're right. I listen more than I did back then. I think back in the day, if someone told me that like this part, I don't like this, made me think I was actually getting someplace. Like I was doing it right. I've irritated this person enough. They're going to remember it. Where now I'm like, okay, I probably should listen. Like they said that part was super awkward. So definitely taking feedback better than ever. And you're right. Trying to think of like listenability of this song to somebody who isn't just listening to the technical pieces of the song, which is how I listen to music mostly, right? Sure, there's songs that are just entertaining to listen to, right? Party in the USA. It's just a song I like. I don't know why. It's my closet song that I really like. But there's nothing in that musically that's doing it for me, right? And then there's songs like Vale and Maya's newest album, I think is actually hard to listen to, but the stuff they're pulling off is amazing, right? So I have I have appreciation for that beyond what I'm hearing. And so now I'm trying to like say, how do I make it musically valid for me and the people who play on it, right? Whether it's you, whether it's Nick, whatever it is. But there's this listenability where a crowd will go, okay, yeah, let's get into it. Let's have fun.
And just for context,
I think part of it is you and me, right? Like, I'll send you stuff and you'll go, all right, how do we make this part pop a little bit more. And so you've been really good at like saying, we're going to bump up volumes here, or we're going to add this richness by changing the tone a little bit. So I think we've gotten better along the way with the mixing, which I think has helped bring up the energy level. So I think it's a combination of the writing, the engineering, producing, all that comes into it.
Well, and you mentioned, I thank you for that, man. I always appreciate the little shout out. But you mentioned Nick. So for context, people who are watching this, what's that relationship?
Yeah, so Nick is my son, also a drummer. So I when you were talking about like, do you really want your kids playing drums? Yes and no, because it's loud, right? And my son is a super hard worker. I wouldn't say that drums came naturally for him, but he liked it early on. Started taking some lessons, and then there was a day he came up from playing, and you could tell he's kind of getting in these ruts, and he's like, what do I need to learn to like validate myself as a drummer? Like, is there a song I should learn? And I tell people I know this song, and they're going to go, oh, you're a badass drummer. And I said, Tom Sawyer, obviously, learn Tom Sawyer. And so to his credit, he went down with the song and learned it like bar by bar by himself. Didn't have tab, didn't have an instructor, just learned every single fill. And that was pretty impressive. And then he came up and he's like, okay, so how do I become one of the greatest drummers ever? And I said, well, Michael Jordan's dad would probably say, do it every day, right? And he goes, what do you mean? And I go, well, do something drum related every single day. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go down and practice for 4 hours. Maybe you're watching other drummers. Maybe you're watching a podcast of drummers. Maybe you're learning the art of songwriting, whatever it is, right? Like, but if you want to be one of the best, it's got to be something that you do. And again, to his credit, he literally posted signs all over the house, these printed signs like, go practice, go practice. And he would go down there every single day, or he would go to a show every day. And he's trying to make a real go of it. He's in 5 bands right now. 2 of them are technically signed by independent labels, which is pretty awesome, right? And they're all over the board. There's a really heavy band he plays in. There's a solo artist he plays with, Nikki Walters, which is just great songwriting. And he's able to really shine there because just 2 of them, which is fun. And then he plays in this Ojo de Luna Latin jazz band, which is, you talk about a band that has potential. That one actually has a ton of potential. Verena, the lead singer of that band, is a talented songwriter, sings in multiple languages. That has legs. So I really hope they do more with that. But that's my son, Nick, and he was gracious enough to play drums on the latest 25 Down album. I'm trying to get him in to do these 4 songs I have sitting here. But now since time is really hard to come by. So we'll see. You might find yourself being called upon again, Kevin. I hope you.
Hey man, I can only hope and cross my fingers. Well, first of all, I'll put a couple of links for Nick's other projects into the description, and that way people can check it out, because he is a very good drummer, and I'm a harsh critic, but he is a very good drummer, and now I can see why all that dedication and focus when he was getting started. And he had kind of a similar lesson that you did, where you had your jazz band teacher that said, you're not meeting your full potential. Everybody loves hearing that, but it pisses you off and you go, okay, I got to do better. And then you were like, hey man, learn Tom Sawyer. And he did it. Dang, man.
I have one great story that I can share about that song, by the way. So in Vegas, there's I don't know if you've ever seen this. It's an arcade game that's a drum set.
I haven't.
And it's kind of like Guitar Hero, but for drums. And we walk up to this thing, and this older gentleman, he's probably mid-30s. He's got his girlfriend watching, and he's struggling through some song, like some easy song, and he's struggling through it. And so my son's kind of waiting patiently for his turn, and he finally notices, like, oh, do you want to play? I was going to play another one, but I'll let you play first. And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. So, he's all excited about it for some reason. And so my son sits down, you start like scrolling through the songs, and he's like, oh, what are you going to play? What are you going to play? And he finds Tom Sawyer, plugs Tom Sawyer in. And the look this guy gave his girlfriend was like, like, yikes, this is going to be a train wreck. And then he starts playing it, right? Right. And he's like, okay, okay. And then he gets to like some of the fills, like, he's like, okay, okay. And he's like so excited for my son. And we're watching, we're excited, and plays the whole song, you know, end to end. And he's like, holy cow, I was not expecting that. Like, I consider myself an okay drummer. And then I saw that, and he's like, I don't think I'm going to play anymore. And he looks at his girlfriend, like, should we go get drunk? Like, just walks away.
Well, Adam,
just ruined drums for this poor guy.
To be fair, I know people that have said that to themselves about guitar after listening to you play. So there you go. I guess it runs in the family.
Maybe we shame people out of their instrument. I don't know.
There you go.
That's not our intent, but I thought it was pretty funny. Anyway, we're talking about songwriting here. Yeah, and it's so I'm gonna push this back on you. I know this is about me a little bit, but I'm curious, when you write stuff, and I know you do a lot of collab stuff, so you probably, some of it comes to you, but you are a good artist in your own, great artist in your own right, and you've written some awesome songs. I still have a bunch of those on my playlists. The coffee one, I don't know why I like that one. Too Much Coffee. I love that song, but I've got that on a playlist I play. How do you come up with this stuff? Are you writing on guitar? Do you write a drum part and then play guitar over it? What do you do?
Well, and this is one of the things I wanted to ask you about too, but now I play a few different instruments.
Yeah.
So I play bass. Bass has become one of my favorites, actually. I just love playing bass.
It actually suits you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't
know why, but it does.
But it's all about that power, you know, and rhythm. Bass and drums really just are a great match, right? So, and you know, I'm kind of a hack on the guitar, but I can sometimes write some things. But now I'm learning keys, and so every different song, I think for me, there's a lot of visual aspects to it. Like I get an image in my brain, like you were saying about your Mustang in the song "Let's Go." It's like a lot of my song ideas come from an image or even a color. It's weird. The way I see music is like that. It's more visual and imagery. And so I'll get sort of an idea like that in my brain, and then it'll come to me like, this has to happen on a bass guitar. And so like that song you were talking about, Too Much Coffee, I was actually in a hotel in Vegas for 2 months during COVID doing some training for a job I had. I went on Craigslist, I bought a fretless bass, I bought a cheap little electric guitar, I had my laptop, I bought a condenser mic, and I just recorded music for like 2 months in that little hotel room. And that's where that song got born. I had, you know, before I went on that trip, I had pre-recorded all these drum tracks, just random stuff. I was like, I'm going to use this somehow. I don't know how, but I just know. So that song was on after a particularly rough day working, got back to that hotel room. Vegas is just closed down because it's COVID, like the very beginning of COVID. And I just went nuts on that fretless bass. It was like the day after I picked it up from some guy. And I just started kind of fooling around on the bass and then created a riff basically. And then I realized I'm kind of onto something, like this is kind of catchy. I want to build off of it. And then I realized I had a drum piece that I pre-recorded that would be perfect for it. And I didn't get very much sleep that night, but I got my laptop out and kind of put it all together. And those are my early days learning how to produce music too. So there's a lot of learning going on. But for me, and this is something I want to ask you about too, but for me, like knowing a lot of different instruments has really helped me change my approach to songwriting. Like it's opened up a lot. And I know like for you, there was one point where you started learning drums and you were able to pick it up quickly. You're kind of a natural at it. And do you still have a drum kit? And do you feel that that's influenced your songwriting?
Yeah. It's interesting. There was a long time I played more drums than guitar actually. And partly because like I was out of shape and I'm just not a runner. I'm not gonna go run, but you could go down and play double bass for, you know, an hour and you're exhausted, right? So I played a lot and I got pretty good. I don't think I really I'm not a good like counter while I play. So I don't think I'd ever be a great drummer in a band unless it was pretty basic stuff. But it definitely changes because you start to think about where a drum fill could come in or where drums could take over on a song, things like that, for sure. Leaving space for it, I guess. And that's something I still work on, by the way, is leaving space. I tend to like to fill up everything with guitar, and I need to do more of the, hey, let's leave 8 measures for something. Maybe it's nothing, right? So I need to do more of that. And then bass is same. I guitar and bass, I think, translate pretty quickly. But you do have to be more patient on bass. You have to play softer, I feel like. And that's why sometimes when I send you stuff like, it sounds all clinky, probably because I'm like, like I feel like I'm tapping on every fret, and when really you just need like a light touch probably gets it done. So some of it is I need to learn to play the instrument a little bit better. But yeah, definitely. And you start to think about like where you can add richness with a lower bass line instead of just mirroring the guitar line, which is still, I end up doing that at times. But like if I can write a counterpart to the guitar, it always comes across better. And then that often leads to like, what are the drums doing, right? Are they following the bass? Are they following the melody with the guitar? So all that comes into play. And I do like the variance you can create, right? Like sometimes they're all in sync, right? And then sometimes they're all kind of doing their own thing. I love that. So yeah, learning different instruments definitely helps songwriting, I would say, and composing.
All right, now I got to maybe ask you one of the toughest questions that I've been thinking, which is how do you know when a song is actually finished? Because it's really easy to get into this creative thing where you're just going, you're rolling with it. And you also kind of a perfectionist like I am in some ways. And you go, I can keep making this better. I can keep making it better. And you keep tweaking it and working on it. But at some point, you found a way to get it into the studio, record it, and produce it and publish it. Like, how do you know when the song is actually done?
Yeah, it's funny. So I think the first album, me and you did during COVID, basically, right? Still kind of coming out of COVID. And it came through that idea of like, you sent me a song, I played some guitar on it. And then I was like, oh, I have some songs, you should play drums on it. And before we knew, we had like 9 songs and we're like, let's throw it out there, right? So that one was maybe a one-off, but a lot of those songs some of them had already been kind of in the works. I wrote some for that. But then the next album really is where I said, I started writing new music and I was like, I want to write these songs, right? And I did have this idea of playing them with Nick live. And that definitely changed the idea of where the music was going to go. I was like, this needs to be fun to listen to. And it needs to have that energy we talked about, right? How do you know if a song is finished? Beginning, middle, and end, right? Like, does it take you someplace? And does it leave you feeling, wow, that was good? Or does it leave you going, man, this feels like an incomplete sonnet, right? Like, and I'm sure there's songs where you kind of want to leave it like hanging out there. I tend to try and resolve stuff. And that's my dad's fault. I remember when I was learning guitar, you play, and then you kind of run out of it and you just slide off like, and he's like, you need to learn how to finish. Like, you just, everything said, And I'm like, all right, that's fair. So now I tend to try and finish songs. It's a good question though. And like one of the recent songs I'm working on is a good example. Wrote this song, liked it, sent it to you. You liked it, had some feedback, kicked it back to me. And I started reducing some parts. And then as I listened to it again, I was like, but now it's like missing something. And for me, what it was missing was just something that's like a little bit of a shift gear, right? And so I found myself adding this one part, and then I loved it. So I added it in the middle and then at the end, right? And it's not this crazy long part, but it like adds this little something to the song. And as soon as I added that, I felt content. I was like, yes, this is what it needed. And I felt like it was done. So for me, a song is done when you can listen to it today and go, I like it. Come back tomorrow, I still like it. Have someone else listen to it, potentially give you feedback, and then listen to it again. And if you listen to it and you're like, all of a sudden you start feeling like not great about it, it needs something. Either you need to take something away, you need to add something, whatever it is. But if you listen to, like, let's say you would have sent it back, like there was one song you're like, I kind of like this as is. I kind of agree with you. That song is done. So for me, that's it, right? I do think that songs are a journey, and you need to be able to come back to it over time and go, yes, I still like it. Yes, I still like it. And if at some point you're like, it's losing its luster for me, if it's losing its luster for me as the writer of the song, imagine how someone else is going to feel listening to it without, like, they're not vested like I am. So it needs to hold up over time. I think that's probably the best thing I could give you.
Yeah, I like that. That's really good. All right, so now you've probably written hundreds of songs by now. And there are some people watching this that are just getting started and trying to figure it all out. So need some advice from you for brand new songwriters. Like, how do you get started? What should you do? What to focus on?
Yeah, it's fair. First off, probably, like, if I could do it all over again, I would probably try and find a way to, like, play more popular music, right? Because that has more potential for making big sums of money and and I know there's people like, oh, I don't play music to get rich or whatever. Like, you love it, like, you like it, right? If someone's going to pay you millions of dollars to do something you love, you would be okay with that, right? So, if that's why you play, or what a goal of yours, you probably got to play stuff that, like, can get on the radio, right? So that's step one. If you're really just playing for the artistic piece of it and the outlet, play whatever you like. Make sure it feeds your soul, right? And how do you start? I think it starts with playing, right? If you have a way to record what you're playing, which everyone does now, at least on your phone, right? That's how I do a lot of it, right? Put it on your phone, listen to it again, and then think about where that could go, right? Like, naturally where that could go. And then become a student of others, right? Everybody has a genre of music that they like. Try and get outside of that and listen to some other stuff. Not every song has to be verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, cut, right? You can arrange them differently and still make it something people will enjoy. But it comes back with, like, playing something that feeds your soul. Like, I like this. It feels good to me. It makes me feel good playing it. And I want to add something to it. And if you don't find yourself like, don't worry. It takes time, right? And sometimes, like, collaborating with others, like Kevin Osias's of the world, right? Like, play a tune and send it to somebody, and if they go, what would be cool is if this went here, and they'll give you ideas. It's pretty amazing. Just people, even non-musical people, love to give their opinion, right? And they'll tell you, like, oh, what would be cool is if this had, like, a low part here, or if, like, you really pumped it up here, that would be awesome. It really leads into something. So get it out there, share it, hear back. I mean, there's a great story with Nine Inch Nails, Trent Reznor. He had been writing songs for a long time before he ever really put out anything, especially Pretty Hate Machine, which is his first real album. And he was sharing music with people. And finally somebody just said, dude, you got to get this out there. Like, get it out there. Turns out he writes Head Like a Hole and Down in It, and creates one of the greatest alternative heavy albums of all time, right? So you never know what's going to hit. Get your music in front of people, see what they think.
I really love that last. That's so true. Like, there comes a point where you just have to share, like, what you're working on. Well, I know we're running out of time. We're about to get cut off from our friend Zoom, but I do want to say, man, I learned a lot from you today. I'm gonna have to go back and listen and kind of capture. Definitely, I'm gonna link some of the influences and Nick's music. And I'm going to link 25 Down in there so that people can check it out. And I just want to say thank you for doing this today, man. It's been fun. And I actually learned a couple of new things that I didn't know about you, which says a lot, because I've known you for like 3 decades or more. So,
yeah, it's always great catching up with you. We'll have to catch up in person sometime soon. And dude, thanks for all you do, right? You really do bring a lot to our projects. And, for somebody who feels like they write good songs, but they have a hard time getting it out there, you're a great person to talk to. If at the very least, you you're transparent and giving with the ideas that you have. And then if you need somebody to actually just help you do it, Kevin's the man.
Well, because Adam, you have a lot of potential.
I'll practice right now.
Okay. All right, my friend. Thank you so much, and we'll chat soon.
Yep. Have a good one.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.
Right now, it's time. Grab your keys and phone, let's go. Right now, it's time. Grab your shit, come on, let's go. Right now, it's time. Grab your keys and phone, let's go.